And after about a week, the Western Pacific project continues.
From Tyco, of course.
And so, after about a week of weird weather here in Reno, we've had some thunderstorms, some hail, and high winds and everything else. Plus, work has been kind of crazy. I've been able to check out and primer part of 2004 to see where my problems were after I filled in all the mistakes that was made by the saw, and I got lucky. All I had to do was just fill in this, and I filled it in with my MEK glue, the goo. Anytime I ever mention the goo, this is it, which is basically just MEK with a lot of plastic melted in there. And it worked out real well. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to move on to roof detailing. We're going to replace the GP20 stack here with this GP20 stack. This is a Bachmann GP9 dynamic brake, and it sort of fitted on there, but what I wound up doing is I had to file the sides a little bit, so this will pop right on. And then of course we have to shorten the winterization hatch. Now, I was able to find another Jeep 20 body, obviously. I mean, these things were a dime a dozen. And I was able to get a saw from Hobby Lobby. The saw from Hobby Lobby did not work that well. And I'm not talking that it worked not that well because it was a dull blade already. It was a sharp blade, but it was a very, very fine blade. So it took forever to cut. And I mean forever. Which is nice. I mean, I'm able to do it slow. However, it was painstaking and a pain in the tuchus. So we're going to shorten up the winterization hatch, and how we're going to shorten up the winterization hatch, as soon as I can move this, there we go. So I got to take everything from the grill on down, which means I got to do some cutting underneath. Now this is nice. This is a 3D printed winterization hatch. So I'm going to cut that. I'm going to trim this. I'm going to shorten it up here to the grill. I'm going to put it on the 30-inch fan, and that's just going to barely work over the dynamic brake here, which is fine, which is really kind of what I wanted. And if I had the postcard here handy, which I don't, oh I do. As you can see from the postcard here, it looks like the winterization hatch does go a little bit over the dynamic brake, so we're good on that. So I'm going to file down the old exhaust so we can put the new exhaust on. I'm going to put the dynamic brake blister on. I'm going to put the dynamic brake blister on after I put on the winterization hatch. And I'm going to fix part of this dynamic brake. I do have some dynamic brake fans that I can work with, but I might just go ahead and use the 20x60 Plastruct and just kind of wrap myself around there. So we're going to do that, and through the miracle of time, I'll show you the finished product. Alright, so we've got our roof details applied, we got our winterization hatch, we've got our dynamic brake, and we've got our exhaust. It's already starting to look good. Next, I'll have to get a horn for this. I have to find out which model horn. And then we just got to put on the barrel headlights on the front and the back. Now, as far as the barrel headlights in the back, I'm not going to worry about this because it's never going to run long hood forward. So that's an easy mount. Here I got to knock out the other number board and the headlights, and then when I mount the headlight with the new LED light, which will be in here, I've got to drill a hole. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that fun stuff, and then we'll be right back after these messages. Alrighty friends, it's been a couple of days again. As you can see, I've got the stack, the dynamic brake, the winterization hatch, and the barrel headlights. So far it's looking pretty close to 2004, which is making me happy. Now also, as you can see on the board, I've got a whole bunch of different projects going on. I've got to finish painting the nose on 3508, which is pretty much good enough to go. I've got a tail light I got to put on my Santa Fe caboose, but those I'm not doing. You've already seen how I done the thread on this, so we're not worried about that. What we are going to do is we're going to fill in the big old gap here, and we're going to be cutting off the Talgo couplers on the Mantua GP20. And I think that'll kind of conclude that episode. How I'm going to fill in the holes? Well, ladies and gentlemen, never throw away these that come on your little bread wrappers, because that's how I'm going to fill them in. With these little bread ties. So we're going to do that. First, we're going to mount the couplers. We're going to body mount the couplers, and then we will go ahead and get the coupler height correct. And then when all that is said and done, I'm going to take the couplers off. Well, before I take the couplers off, I'm going to fill them in with these. But then after that, I'm going to take the couplers off, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a coat of paint. And what I'm going to coat it with is Badger's Model Flex, which I've never used before, but it's Western Pacific green, so it's the Perlman green, which is the right green I'm going to be needing for it. I've got some brand new Western Pacific decals straight from Microscale. Ouch. Their minimum order was 4, but when I had to do the Santa Fe plug door boxcar in one of my earlier videos, I was tired of them falling apart. And although I do have a set of Western Pacific decals already, I didn't trust them. I know there's a way of preserving them. I'm not ready for that as of yet, but we will probably get that done either after I get this done and the 2Fs done, and I will probably do that when I start on my SD9E for Southern Pacific. So stay tuned. This is going to be the camera angle from now on, so I gotta remember to do this and all sorts of other things. It just makes it easier for me. So first we'll mount the couplers. So the first step, of course, is to modify the frame a little bit. And to modify the frame, you got to get rid of the Talgo trucks. All I did was I just took my Dremel with a cutting disc and just cut them off. Makes it nice, neat, simple. That's not something that's really detail oriented. I can't remember the specific model of Kadee coupler pockets, but these are the snap-ins, and I like these a lot more than the older version with the ears. it makes it really easy to assemble the couplers. So now we're going to move that aside, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to prepare to mount our coupler boxes. And how I mount the coupler boxes on locomotives and cars, if you haven't seen, is I use basically the big end, and I just mount that underneath, and then I snap the cover on. That's the easiest way, although I have noticed on a few of my freight cars that the lid will pop off, so I might run some canopy glue on there just to keep it in position. And of course, you know me, I always grab the cheapest couplers I can find. But these work. They're not as super solid as KDs, but they'll do the trick. Of course, mounting couplers is just as easy as getting the lip mounted over where you see the coupler piece here. And just get it nice and steady, and then my arm goes in the camera, and then I just slather on some plastic welder here and here and here and here. And here across the top, because I don't have a lot of room underneath for a screw. Now if I wanted to, I could build up a pocket right here. However, I'm not mounting a pocket yet because I don't even know if these are the right height. So using a little bit of plastic welder on here is fine. It's fine, it's easy, and it'll help me determine if I got to go up or down. So when I attempted to put on the Mantua shell, I didn't realize that these tabs here and here stick out. That's going to be a problem because not only do they stick out, but they also, oh, there's just too many wires in here. They also rest on top of the couplers. So I am going to modify this the only way I know how. And the only way I know how is by cutting them. So I have this uncanny ability to change my mind mid-thought. And so what I went ahead and did is I had this piece of block styrene right here onto the body because I wasn't happy with gluing the couplers on. So I went ahead and I glued the block onto the body here, as you can see right here, and then I just went ahead and I screwed the coupler in, and it's almost there. So I will just have to shim them up, and I might even get away with short couplers. I'm using the long Mantua couplers. So now we just got to shim it up, and how we're going to shim them up is with whatever shims. And fortunately, as soon as I can dig them out, Katie does make a coupler shim set, both in really thin to really thin. Considering what that is, I might not shim it if I have them, and I'm looking. But what I was thinking was maybe a coupler box top from one of the other types of KDs, and just putting that in to shim it down correctly. So After these messages, we'll be right back with the shimming. All right, so I put a couple of shims on here, and the way it looks on the height gauge, it still looks a little bit too high. However, this is usually the final acid test. And as you can see, this fits up nicely, and this fits up nicely. So we're going to call that a win. Alright, next thing we got to do, we got to fill in the holes. And front and back is filled with a little bit of trimming. As you can see here, if it'll focus, as you can see here, it fits almost perfectly. I may need a little bit of putty, maybe a little bit of the goo, just to fill it in, but as far as I'm concerned, these fit in rather nicely. So now I just got to take the shell off, and in our next segment, we will go ahead and do the painting of the shell, and then after that we will be installing DCC on the motor. So until then, I am Psycho for Tycho and the Western Pacific. Hey friends, I know you're at the end of the video and all that, but I just wanted to give a quick shout out that if you're in Carson City or any of the surrounding neighborhoods, come on down to Mills Park, where the Carson City Railroad Association, my model railroad club, happens to be at. We've got both HO scale and N scale. We run modular displays. We also have, during the summer months, a 2-foot tourist railroad that kind of goes around half the park. Membership fee is about $35. If you want to run some trains, come on down. Just let us know. Link in the description, and the link is right here at the bottom. And have a good one. I'm Psycho for Tycho. We'll see you next time. My God, I got it right.